Hello, and welcome to From Zero to Studio. I'm Ben Boyd, the game director at DragonBear Studios, where we're working on releasing our title, Innchanted. First, a little bit of history. I'd like to take you through all of our previously released games. How about previous games industry jobs? Let's talk about all the platforms that we're releasing Innchanted on. Okay, PC and all the major consoles. That's weird, right? How weird is that? So, how did this happen? We ourselves started with zero industry experience. We came from other backgrounds, corporate and government. And how did we get to this point? Firstly, assistance from the existing industry. People have been the strongest boost to us across the entire length of the studio. We've got funding from Film Victoria at several stages. They were absolutely pivotal to reaching any of our goals and milestones that we achieved, especially early on. We now have a publishing deal, which is helping us at the large end of the game to finish the back half. Sheer determination. There's a lot of that. And look, there's a healthy dose of spite. I'll be honest. There's some spite involved. So what this talk is what did we learn along the way? So for people out there who are considering themselves, hey, I'd like to start a studio. I'd like this to be something that sort of brings a few things to their attention that they may not have considered before, that can hopefully smooth out some of the wrinkles that we experienced along the way. So what is this talk? We have lessons for early starters. We have some opportunities you may not be aware of. Mistakes made, definitely, and what we learned from it. And what's working for us now. So we're kind of going to go through from early stages all the way through till now. Sort of the structure of the talk is going to talk about the really early stuff, the middle stuff, the end. We're not going to go too heavily into detail in a lot of these. For example, how do I set up a company? What is a PTY Ltd? Not the point of the talk. But when I went and set up my company, what could I have done better? When I was searching for funding, where could I also have found it? I don't need to tell you that publisher deals exist. I don't need to tell you that Film Victoria exists. But the extra little bits that might surprise you. Employment contracts, you can get these elsewhere. This is probably something that's worth bringing up to people trying to get started. IGEA has a contracts pack for members. That is a great starting point. It is absolutely, it's better than what we had when we started. That come along later. But here's the thing, what happens when you need to change it? What if you need to make it custom? What happens if you're hiring a programmer and they've got work that they can bring into your project that just fits like a glove, but your contracts, like your lawyer has advised you, says that the work of the game and all the code in it belongs to you. What happens? They should retain ownership. They wrote that code in the first place. They're sharing it with you. How does this become a real contract and not just writing on a napkin, okay, we won't push that. We chose an expensive lawyer as well, so that number could be a lot smaller if you didn't have the expensive practice that we do. You probably want to have a good lawyer though. This is a space for me to tell a comma story. When we were in negotiations with a third party, there was a clause in their contracts that we absolutely didn't like, would not sign with the knowledge of that being there, but they also didn't want to budge, the third party. And during the review process, we brought that up with our lawyer. She returned a version of it to us. Should I be being very specific? Anyway, with essentially that clause exactly as we saw it. And we're like, hang on, we didn't want this. We specifically said, don't. However, when we questioned that, she went back to us and said, actually, because of where I've put this comma, they actually get nothing and you keep everything. So don't worry about it. We did not go through with that addition. We did not put that edited clause into the contract. And I feel like that was the right choice. However, would you really like to have that person on someone else's side? Or would you like to have that person who could pick up things like that on your side? Mentors. You are going to need mentors. This path is hard. There is not one guide to running a studio or to making games. It is very hard to do alone. A lot of what we're going to talk about today involves people, actually. But I want to be clear that we ask for help all the time. We have networks of people that we talk to on nearly every issue that comes up that we can't handle ourselves. And it's the only reason we've been able to get this far. Yes, I said other things like money from Victoria and other things. Yes, but even to get to those points, that came from help and assistance from mentors. How do you find a mentor? Shortest version, ask. If you've been talking to people at events and you are vibing with them and you feel like they've got experience that you would like shared with you, just ask them if they're available to help and be your mentor. I have found that when I do that, it goes fine. Overall, people generally say yes. Yes, there's always concerns about being a burden on people, but that is also part of their role to be aware of if they're pushing themselves too hard or trying to take on too many mentees, that kind of stuff. And that's on them to say no. The only thing that you can do is ask. Join communities. You are going to need to find these people first to be able to ask them. How else are you going to get them if you don't join communities? Sign up for programs. So like in Melbourne International Games Week, there's the events that run like the IGEA Scholars, things like that. Sign up for them, put your hat in the ring. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. This is Action Duck. Action Duck tells us the things that we discussed so far. Action Duck tells us that you should get an accountant. You should get a lawyer. You should join communities and find networks. And you should find mentors. Thanks, Action Duck. All right. Big topic change coming. That was still pretty early stuff. Probably applicable across a lot of time. However, we are going to be moving into people. People are your biggest resource, not time spent. If you try and do something try and do everything by yourself, you will end up burnt out. If you try to be a programmer and a 3D artist and a sound person, what you're doing is you're spending this time to learn those skills as well as perform those skills. Truthfully, they'll never be as good as someone who's specialized in that. Your enemy is time. In this whole process, your enemy is always time. You need to make the most of it. In this, you can get people who have the knowledge you already need, and people who may not be the ones that you want to be working with. That sounded like that was mean towards them. What I mean is, even though you're not looking to directly work with people, establishing networks are also extremely useful for boosting and supporting. Like we talked about earlier about mentorship, like we're going to talk about later about publicity and how every single bit of publicity does count when you're trying to brand yourself and make sure that people are aware of yourself when you're trying to get publishing deals. And just being in the right spaces, really. Essentially, do the work that you're there to do. If you're a programmer and you're trying to get a vertical slice going, don't go and learn Blender. Even for pitching to publishers, if you do your strength well, your programming, and you grey box the rest of it and move on, you will have something much better for it than spending that time learning more disciplines and taking more time to get your vertical slice to where you can show it to people. Also, if you're not the right person for the job, it's going to have someone do it again later anyway. So many people have rewritten my old code or my old assets that were, prototypey stuff to get stuff going. That just means they had to make time or to do it later, and it meant that the time I spent on it was, in the end, not really valuable. So why do it? Also meant I was working far too many hours in those times. That's a different topic. We're not touching on that one in this talk, though. Yes, solo dev stories do exist. Stardew Valley, love it. But there are so many stories of silo devs burning themselves out, working all hours, trying to do everything in a project. Just don't let it happen to you, please. What should you be doing instead? Form a team. Working together will get better results. Sometimes you have to pay them if you're at the stage that you have money. Sometimes people want to get together to form a studio together. Make sure your documents are set up right. The other thing you can do is trust that team. It is very important to not be the kind of person who has to supervise everything and make sure that everything is conforming exactly correctly. Just trust them to do their work and you'll end up with a harmonious team as opposed to people who feel micromanaged. So how do you attract people? Personally, I found that doing something that people like is working well. Our studio goals are about boosting representation, specifically for underrepresented genders in the industry and Indigenous content. Our gameplay is specifically built to be wholesome, collaborative, not stressful. You're meant to play it with your families, with your kids, with your friends, partners, and that stuff resonates with people. We attract a very different crowd to the shooty bang game genres. Someone update that on Steam, please. That's definitely the definite real term for it. And the people who enjoy these things tend to also be supportive people, and it just has been good for us. We didn't start saying, how can I engineer this to make people support us? But as people have realized who we are and what we're doing, we've gained more support over time. All right, moving topics again. So just a little bit of a second to leave those people behind. Money. Money is a big one. So how did we get funding? Film Victoria. That was where we went from a very, very basic vertical slice to being able to get a vertical slice that we can pitch to publishers, and we actually call it an actual vertical slice. I'm sure people at Film Victoria who saw our very first concept, they would not use the terms vertical slice. But here's another thing. Did you know you're eligible for local council small business grants? Should retake that, won't. Games focuses a lot on state and federal funding. However, there is small amounts of money in other areas that are up for grabs. You can find information on their websites about small businesses, and you might check it and you might think that you're not eligible because you're not in sports and arts and that kind of stuff that is listed on there. However, that is not true that you're not eligible. What we found is that most people there just don't know that games are a business. We've had to educate them. We've had to have long conversations sort of describing why games is a business, and we're kind of hoping that we're setting up the path going forward so that other devs can benefit from this as well. So specifically in Melbourne City Council and Moonee Valley City Council, we know that they now accept games applications for small business grants and COVID relief grants, where previously, if we called them up, they were not really aware why that we would be relevant. Very importantly is building a relationship with your grants officer. If they're on your side, they understand you, then they can repeat that on to the other people making those decisions. Here's an interesting topic though. The trap of having had some money. So Innchanted is a bigger game than it was ever intended to be. And this is not because things got out of our hands. It really isn't. After our first Film Victoria funding, we wanted to attract publishers. Attracting a publisher took nearly 2 full years. 2 full years. We also couldn't keep developing the game during that time to the same quality as the rest of the vertical slice because we didn't have the funding to keep paying people. So we had some money, which got us something, so that it wasn't attracting publishers, but we couldn't make it better because we didn't have more money to get definite attraction from them. So to make our investment so far worthwhile, we couldn't get more money that way, so we needed to pay people to make it so we could get more money so that we, all right. Keep making game, no, so we won't, all right, just this part. Cool, so we need more investment so we can attract a publisher. We can't attract a publisher, so we need to pay more people to get more work, so we don't have more. Hang on, all right, so we're back up to it, so we need more investment, but we can't attract a. Okay, I haven't seen anyone discuss this yet. It's a very interesting topic. How did we escape it? We were successful in another Film Victoria Grant Round. What would we have done if we weren't successful in another Film Victoria Grant Round? That's a great question. Well, Enchanted would have been released by now, because we would have been able to accept limits at a certain point and release a much smaller game. And truth is, while it would have been released, it probably would have been forgotten about by now. We wouldn't have achieved our goals. We wouldn't have been able to make as lasting an impact, I don't believe. But it would have been out. So, you know, that's something. So to get more money, you have to match other people's desires. Part of this is investors want to get more money. That's why they invest money. So to attract them, you're also going to need to be bigger. We wanted a publisher. Publishers are not the only way to get funding. There's a few more here: capital investors, non-industry angels. Why didn't we choose those? What we wanted was support. It's our first game. We have no previous commercial titles. You may remember the slides earlier. And what we really wanted was a partner who would also work with us during this. So just taking a injection of cash would have been great. However, we couldn't have guaranteed that we would be using it well. We are not marketers. We cannot market a product like this. We just don't have those skills, so we were looking for someone to do it for us. While we had a clear budget of what we wanted to do to finish the scope of the project that we wanted, it was too small. The most common thing we would get back is, sorry, not interested in projects of that size. Every day. So we kept getting that feedback, so we found out some desired features, we added them, we doubled our budget, because we know that, you know, some things that sound like easy features, like online multiplayer, are very expensive, not just in making it at the start, but then making the rest of the game with all of it also networked. All of a sudden, though, people were calling us back. We literally doubled our budget. We chucked a few more dot points in a PowerPoint in the pitch decks we were sending, and now people were interested. So how did we do that? What also changed? We went back, and with those, we made more detailed production plans. With that, we suddenly got a lot more interest. From that point on, when we could give... I've got it on the next slide. After that, the thing that really made the most popularity for us, and the thing that was the difference between when we went from to asking people to, hey, please call us back, we have a great game, you really want it, I promise, until one day we woke up and every day we'd have 3 more publishers having had emailed us going, hey, please call us. Was winning the PAX Indie Showcase. That was the difference for us. It was a publicity volcano. It was a large number of wishlist. It was a large number of articles. And through that, we were able to get a publisher deal that we signed. Was one of those people that contacted us from the PAX Indie Showcase. So I kind of already explained this one. So I'm just going to skip to the middle one, which is having both your pitch deck and your good demo, as well as your production plan. Gantt charts, budgets, and HR plans were all things that we added to the projects, to the pitch deck, so that we could show how the money was being spent and where we were getting at certain phases, what we were accomplishing by particular dates, all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, people were like, yep, all right, cool, here's a contract to start reviewing while we finish the rest of the discussions, where previously people were like, contracts, they come later. And then when we won the PAX Indie Showcase, knock, knock, who is it, everyone? Look, it felt great. A little bit bragging. A lot of work went into it. Just a lot of work went into that from a lot of people. So what did we learn from that? Publishers want a sure thing. We were a first-time studio. If we didn't have those production plans, basically we were seen as too much of a liability. They went, okay, cool, they might have a good game. Can I trust them to finish it? Their feeling was no, and they walked away. The other thing is publicity matters. Every single article that's been written about us has helped. When we send those pitch decks, it included a slide that has links to all of the articles from everyone that we've received that had positive feedback, great things to say, quotes, all that kind of stuff. And all of it was just, I feel, very impactful to publishers make the decision to fund us. What's the lesson for the money trap section? I don't know. If you're in that, what do you do? I can't help you. I just want to bring it up. It exists. People don't talk about it. It was very real. Be prepared for that. Have a plan for that. What happens if you get money and then don't get money after that is a question you can answer ahead of time. Hey, Action Duck. Yeah, so, Action Duck's cut anyway. Be prepared that money can be a slippery slope. Decide what kind of investment you really need. You may just need angel investor. You may just need a cash injection. You may need a publisher. Can create production plans along with your pitch materials. Gantt charts, very easy to make. You don't have to go full scrum and have a ticket and sprint plan. But also know who you are and what you want to achieve. I think that helped a lot with money, because when we found the partner that we did want to work with, they wanted to work with us because of who we were, because we were still being our honest selves in that and presenting what we wanted. And they were someone who respected that. It's a break slide because we're changing topics again. All right. This is a you. I'm ready to talk to publishers. What can you tell me? It has to be you saying that, because let's talk about publisher deals. What I'm going to be talking about is a little bit about the unspoken rules of negotiation, some ways to make sure you don't get taken advantage of. And yeah, we're sort of a bit more in the advanced territory. Maybe I didn't separate enough to be, hey, this is beginning and intermediate. Anyway, we're in publisher deals now. There's a lot of bad faith actors out there. First things first, our publisher deal is not a predatory one. I can say this looking directly into the camera and with a lot of confidence. I am very happy with the deal that we have. However, we saw a lot of bad ones. We got very close to signing a bad deal a couple of times. Very close. So let's talk about the unspoken rules. They are negotiators. You are talking to their negotiator. You are probably not a negotiator. Don't go unprepared into negotiations, or you will be taken advantage of. If you don't reach out for advice, you will get taken advantage of. The only way that you get ahead of them is by talking to other people. People have done this before. People may present things to you and say, this is the industry standard. How do you know that? What tells you that's the industry standard? You've heard of other people having bad deals. Does that mean you need to have a bad deal too? No. Don't ever take the first offer, ever, in anything. This is any contract, ever. This is not just publisher deals. They're going to give the deal that they want the most as the first offer. Of course they will. They expect negotiation. When you go into a publisher deal, they expect you to negotiate. Everything is up for negotiation. Everything. Here's a bunch of things. I could go through them. The point is, even if you're trying to discuss one particular aspect of it, you could make up for a shortfall in one of them by tweaking any of the others or all of the others. 10 years is too long a term. Cool, 7 years, but the recoupable costs also include this. That's a bad example. Don't touch recoupable costs of more things. Tax implications. Now you get the tax credits instead of the publisher, but it's 10 years instead of 7. Just everything can move. Everything. So how do you negotiate? Basically, talking to other people. You are going to want to talk to other people at all stages. You might be scared because you've signed an NDA. NDAs are not there to leave you in a personal bubble where you can potentially get manipulated. They are there to make certain things not public. You can still talk to advisors in this. We have people who we pay to advise us, and we use them to review contracts, talk about industry standard kind of stuff, and ensure that we're not agreeing to things that are predatory because we just didn't know. You can do this at all stages. You can do this before you even get a contract. You can do it when you get the first contract. Generally, you get a template. They're like, hey, it looks like this. Let us know things, and then we'll write up the real one. Because no one wants to pay lawyers more to get, a specific one early. That's just going to get tweaked more. And my slide's not caught up. If you're not comfortable negotiating, have someone do it with you or for you. You are talking to their negotiator. Why would you not have a negotiator of your own? Just makes sense. Bad deals. All right. We saw all kinds. So some were clearly bad and predatory. Some looked great, but were secretly predatory. How can you tell? You've probably seen some Twitter threads recently as well on this particular topic. Just great information. Read everything you can. These are things that are a bad deal. No royalty until 100% recoup. Don't sign it. The ability to add costs that are recoupable at their own discretion at any time. Don't sign that. Owning your IP. Don't do that one either. Just don't. One-sided accountability. No. Final decision-making power in terms of design. Cool. What if they say your game about bubbles now has to be about mushrooms? You're not making that game. They can advise. They're encouraged to advise, but final decision power has to be with you. Some other things that could be in there as well covers your territories, places that actually that one's not so bad. I started talking off the slides. Maybe I'll just move on. No royalty until 100% recoup. Let's talk about that for a bit. So how are you going to pay for food in the months after the game comes out? If you're not making any money until the game's recouped its developmental costs, what are you getting? What if it takes 6 months to recoup those costs? What if it takes 12 months? Can you reasonably plan that? How are you going to work on the next game? How are you going to pay people? What happens to you if it doesn't break even? Better version, 20% of the revenue goes to you while recouping is still happening. It's a normal thing. So from the first sale, you get 20%. It's going to take longer for them to recoup the costs, but the point is you can still keep paying your people. You can still be bug fixing. It's better for everyone. It's in everyone's best interest. And you don't need to stress about how you're going to pay rent. Can add costs at any stage with no oversight. You might think this is fine. Cool. What if they're like, hey, you're about to break even. So I went and bought a helicopter and stuck the game logo on it. So marketing costs just went up a bunch. You got to recoup that next before you'll receive any money. Yes, is this hyperbolic? Yes. But do you really want to be in a situation where a bad faith actor could do that? You don't want to be needed to agree for every marketing spend, though. Like, the answer is not, I must be consulted on everything. They are the marketers. They are the experts. You would be signing off on something that you don't really know and understand. There's no point. But at the same time, you need the capability to stop bad faith actors in extreme cases. So instead, how about increases to recoupable marketing budgets over a certain percentage should be discussed and approved with the developer. Yep, they can still, if a PAX booth cost more than last time, you still can they can still just go ahead with that. But at the same time, you can make sure they can't buy helicopters. If the deal is otherwise good, but those are in it, don't sign it. Get them to take it out or get compromises. Please understand your worth, that there are other deals out there. We got so close to signing a deal that would have been just disastrous for us because at stages we were desperate. At times we didn't know where our next money was coming from, and trying to get a publisher deal for 2 whole years feels hard at a lot of times. But there were more deals. There were more interested parties. Very importantly, speak to other people they've signed with. Oh my god, yes. So we specifically nearly signed with someone that, separate story, but would have also been very bad for us. Just not good in the long run for many reasons. We went and talked to one of the devs they've already signed, and they said, I'll absolutely talk to you about working with them. And we had a Skype call, and they were like, oh my god, don't. Oh my god. Like, for my game, I have ended up with $0. It's a very real story. It happened to this person who was telling us. We almost signed with that person. Speak to other people who've signed with them. You don't have to wait until you're at the contract signing stage. Same with mentors. Just talk to them about all steps at all times. People is the theme. People. Love them. That's the example I just talked about. There was a really bad clause in it. We said, hey, get that out of there. We don't want this clause. And the people we were working with were like, oh yeah, of course. Immediately removed that clause. We're like, oh, okay, so they're reasonable. But they'd signed someone a few years ago using that same clause and used that to take all their money. Why was it still in the contract when they saw the effects of it? Because they were trying to milk anyone else who didn't push back. I've had a lawyer review it and they say it's good. Is that good? No. Lawyers don't know what's fair. They don't. They know the law. They know how protections. But a lawyer going, yeah, your 15% is absolutely protected, is not the same as in a fellow industry member who'll go, no, that should not be 15%, that should be 60%. All right, some actions. Action ducks on holiday. Cool. Never accept someone's first offer. Push back on predatory clauses. If they don't budge, walk away. Really, do it. Always have someone read the contract. Always have many people read the contract thoroughly. Reach out if you don't have a network that can help you. If you don't have a network that will help you when you're looking at contracts, I will help you. I will. Always have a lawyer review contracts. I've studied commercial law, true random fact here at university. Done commercial law. That helps. Still don't do anything without a lawyer reviewing a contract. Okay. Thanks, Action Duck. Break slide. Scaling up. And growing pains as well. So this is a section where we talk about how we have gone since we've had funding, essentially. Scaling up is incredible. Scaling up is wonderful. The amount of productivity, like the amount of tickets coming in done, the work that we can see, the progress of the game, it's so good. But it comes at a real cost. Time. We scaled up to a few different sizes at different stages, especially once the contract was signed with a publisher deal. We scaled up pretty fast then to meet deadlines and production plans, and then we scaled down again. And one thing we learned from that is management stayed the same size, but now we had more people in management. We still only had 2 founders, but we had a lot more employees, and a few of our systems just weren't in place at that point. So we had documentation, but we didn't have good enough workflow and tools to support the more people working on it. Knowledge transfer of an entire game is hard. Documentation is one thing, you absolutely need it, but also every time someone else joins, you kind of need to explain a lot of gaps. Documentation will be out of date. That's fine. Out of date documentation is better than no documentation, but still you've got to knowledge dump a lot. And overheads, the amount of time it takes to do all these things now, that the extra time that stand-up takes, the extra time that more one-on-ones take, the extra time that more payroll and everything there. So you probably have a group of people in mind to start a studio with. You've got a programmer, an artist, maybe a sound person. So good for a vertical slice, so good to go maybe apply for Film Vic with. But what about after that? who does applying for grants, creating pitch materials, managing relationships, balancing budgets, recruitment, self-marketing, setting up tools, payroll, insurance, WorkSafe, COVID safe plans, liability. What do you say? Hire a producer? Okay, then who does the producing? Running a studio is business. It's game development, but the running of the studio is running a business. As we scaled up, that became a full-time role. We thought we could balance it. We thought I could be a programmer during as well. I went into games to be a programmer, by the way. Now I do no programming at all, and I just set up work for people to program, because you can't juggle all of that and get another task done. It's too much. So we transitioned from our role as creative director and tech director or something like that, to now managing director and game director. So we have a business partner essentially, and we have a game owner, and I'm the game owner. Hello. All of those tasks, if you looked at them and you went, that's a lot of things, get advice. We didn't know how to do all of them either. We knew how to do some of them. We'd had business experience in the past. Probably haven't mentioned that we've owned a business before this. It's very relevant. But at the same time, not at this scale. You will need senior producers, you will need mentors, and you'll need biz dev. We actually got straight up told to. We got told by Film Victoria, hey, you applied for this much money. You should go spend this much. You should go and add this much and spend it on senior production mentorship. And it was the best thing they did for us. Oh my God. Thank you, Film Victoria. Because we had someone who we could go to with these questions and they could go, yeah, this is how it works. Game director as a role. So you all came together to make a cool game. You're like, hell yeah, this is Halo, but with bongo drums, and it's called Balo. And you all know what it is and what you're going to do. But how do decisions get made? Are they going to be a committee all the time? Great for early on, doing your vertical slices. Later on, it's too much. You can't call a committee every time there needs to be decisions. When you find out things don't work, when you find out that work you've queued up is too big, and something blows out and you need to cut things out. If you find out that you are trying to make something work one way, and then you need to work out actually what happens if they press the cancel button during this. Oh, you need one single source from all this to make those decisions. It's too much otherwise. If you have your 3 founders, it's 3 people's time. You've got to talk amongst yourselves and weigh up options. You need to share the context because the sound guy probably doesn't know what's, this very specific interaction, and scheduling. Instead, you've got one person, one person's hours should have all the context. Basically, part of my job is keeping the entire of the game in my head. Anyway, documentation as well. And scheduling is hard, but that's just because there's a lot that I need to do, but it's not scheduling multiple people. But it's a single point of failure. So what happens if the game director gets hit by a bus? That's what your documentation is for. The reason I'm talking about this is I want to get the concept across that you probably want to divide up roles cleaner than you're doing. It has worked really well for us. Documentation, write it all the time. Out-of-date documentation, better than no documentation. Getting a whole game out of your head is hard. Just real hard. We tried a bunch of things. So we started this in a place where the 2 of us could share these ideas together in person all the time. So a lot of the game design was done in notebooks. Then we got more people and online. How do you share a notebook? So it is just bad. We made a wiki. It was something. It's pretty dull. We went on to Confluence as our solution we use now. Look, it's not perfect, but it's really good. It's also free for less than 10 users. Just recommended. Task tracking is another thing you'll need. What's the state of everything? Who's working on what? When they finish one piece of work, what do they pick up next? So that you don't need to tell them what they need to do. We tried Hack and Plan. It was really good for the early stages. Quite enjoyed it. We really outgrew it though. Really started feeling teething issues on that. Now we use Jira. It's better than Hack and Plan, but costs money. It's really fiddly. It's not perfect. There's a lot of things that I don't like with it, to be perfectly honest. We had to use it for our publisher arrangement anyway, for bug tracking, so we figured why not do our task tracking there too. But that's where we are now, and it's working better for us. There's a bunch of other options out there. What's the best one? It depends on your studio. Try a few things out. One of our producers wanted to really just make it Kanbanized for us. Maybe check that out. Yeah, people perform better when they have clear views on what they're doing. It's just important. We can move on from this one. How do you get these clear instructions though? Spending time beforehand in preparation. So you're also a programmer. How do you get time to prepare all this stuff to make sure that people have tickets full of information to work on? It doesn't fit in with other jobs. This is why we transitioned away from it. How did we get here? Yeah, running into problems. Just, we had some times that things didn't work. What does my day look like? It's the stuff we just talked about. But essentially, another thing, there's just being really clear on this, I got into games to make a game. You probably got into games to make a game. I spend most of my days preparing people's work, meetings, answering questions that come up, publisher meetings, managing the relationship with the publisher. It's a fair amount of my time as well. Who's going to do that? Just think about that now. So, yeah, if you don't want to do this, I guess you can hire someone. Hiring someone to do the business decisions and that kind of stuff is a bit weird. But the other option is probably just don't start a studio. If none of you want to do business, don't run a studio. Sucks to hear. I don't like saying it, but that's where we are. How do you learn this stuff? As always, people. Mentors, networks of peers, other GCAP talks, leadership books. I've spent a lot of time trying to upskill in leadership, because what is leadership in COVID times? God, leadership in COVID times. You got to keep learning this stuff. Now you've got a big team. Now you need to manage a big team. You need to be prepared for this. Learning from other people's experiences. We asked a lot of questions as well of, hey, what worked for other studios? What hasn't worked for other studios? If we tried to do this without actively going out and seeking this information, we would still be making mistakes that we previously made. All right, let's wrap up. So, making Enchanted has been a dream come true. I work with a wonderful team of talented, beautiful people. I wouldn't have it in any other way, but it's been hard at many different stages for many different reasons. I hope personally that this lets some of you, hopefully all of you, avoid some pitfalls that you may not have thought about. I've aimed this to be in a few different areas, in a few different less spoken about topics, but really please take this information and think about these things. How do you plan to find more mentors? How do you plan to handle the business side? How do you plan to attract money? What kind of investment do you want? For each of those steps, there's more learnings to do. This is not how to make a pitch deck, for example. There's resources for that. There's people for that. There's GCAP talks for that. This isn't how to make a game. But what it has been, I hope, is some food for thought, some things that you can talk to each other if you're talking about a studio together with, and plan for ahead of time. Would have saved us more time to not be learning it during, and I just hope it does for you. Keep talking ahead of my slides. Also, always seek help. Whenever we run into problems, we ask people. Running a studio does not have to be a lonely job. We are there as well. If you have questions, reach out. I'll answer them. That's the end. Please take care. Enjoy the rest of GCAP. That's been my talk. A few heavier topics in there as well, but really, I want you to succeed, and I really hope you do. Catch you later.